Today at the National Press Club, Greens leader Bob Brown outlines his party's agenda and vision for Australia. With the Greens hoping to win a lower house seat and the balance of power in the Senate, the minor party is attracting unprecedented popularity. Senator Bob Brown from the National Press Club.
Hello and welcome to the National Press Club in Canberra and today's National Australia Bank address. I'm Sophie Morris, a director of the club and a journalist with the Australian Financial Review. In this, the fifth and final week of the election campaign, we are bringing you the final set pieces from the leaders ahead of the poll on Saturday. Today it was opposition leader Tony Abbott. Tomorrow we have Prime Minister Julia Gillard. And today it's my pleasure to introduce the leader of the Australian Greens, Bob Brown. Senator Brown, if I might just say a few words about you. Much is known already, but there's a lot of interest in what you've got to say today, in particular because of the position your party is widely expected to hold after this Saturday. It's been widely commented that the Greens are expected to secure the balance of power in the Senate, and they're aiming also for their first seat in the House of Representatives at a general election, which could also prove pivotal. Senator Brown was first elected to Parliament in 1996. He has longer experience as leader of a party than the other two main combatants in this election, and he also has had some experience leading the Greens in Tasmania in a balance of power situation. So please make welcome Senator Brown.
Well, thank you, Sophie. Please excuse my eagerness. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people whose land this is, committing to having the Indigenous people of Australia recognised in our Constitution, and a treaty to acknowledge their priority in this nation of ours. Saturday is crunch time. In the Senate, it will either be a vote for the Greens in bigger numbers, providing accountability, or a return to coalition domination. I'll come back to those options, but first I want to talk a bit about the campaign. Three messages have been repeated to me from the people of Australia in the streets and at airports as I've travelled around in these last few weeks, from Darwin to Melbourne, from Mackay to Cygnet, from Orange to Gungahlin, from Adelaide to Perth. First is that elections are bad for business. People stop spending. Whether it's at the newsagent or the petrol pump, receipts are down. Sunday can't come too soon for small businesses around Australia. But second, a pox on both their houses. There is enormous disappointment and frustration with both the bigger parties at their infighting and their failure to lay out a vision for Australia. None less, I guess, than the debacle and the farce over debates. We Greens would be instigating again the move for a debates commission to ensure that the extraordinary diffidence of both leaders to have a proper debate, not least with me as leader of the third party in this country 3 times in the run to this election campaign, so that people knew what the policies were, could discuss the economy and could get a clear idea of the options available. But third, and this is why I'm delighting in this campaign, there's been such a warm-hearted response from the people of Australia. I'm voting Greens for the first time. I've heard time and again. Good on you, Bob. I hope the Greens go well, and at least you stand for something. This country wants leadership, and it's the Greens who are delivering it. I thank the lady who got on the plane 2 days ago in front of me and turned and told the whole plane, Bob Brown, I'm voting Greens for the first time in my life, for causing me the embarrassment as the rest of the plane looked around. I was on Talkback Radio 2 days ago in Adelaide, and Sarah Hanson-Young got this call during the process. I'm watching Bob Brown and that young lass, Sarah Hanson-Young, with my two mates in the bush. And I just wanted to say that we've all decided we're voting Green. I'm an Aboriginal fella sitting here with two white blokes and never voted Green before, but this time we've all decided that we are. You make sure you tell Mr Brown we're voting Green. Well, I'm passing on the message, ladies and gentlemen. Last week, I went back to Toowoomba on Queensland's Darling Downs, and for my first time to the nearby village of Ackland, A-C-L-A-N-D. But when I got there, Ackland was missing. This was a town of 250 people in the rich Darling Downs agricultural area, which won the title of Queensland's tidiest town in 1989. But Ackland has been demolished, and only one house remains in 2010. Ackland is where all that is wrong with Labor and coalition policies come together in an astonishing result which pulls the rug from under the notion that this wide brown land's beautiful plains are sacrosanct, or the idea that farmlands are needed to feed future generations. No, in Ackland the farmlands are going. They're being converted into an open-cut coal mine. The pit will be 7 kilometres across. It's not just one. I was at Felton, south of Toowoomba, in the week before the election campaign began, and the farmers there are going to see a huge open cut, the Platypus Creek at the bottom of the valley, the hill with the borer rings on top, all going into a proposed open-cut coal pit with a petrochemical works taking water from the southeast corner, the metropolitan area, to boot if the developers have their way. Well, a few weeks ago, I might add, coal seam gas. Is that on the election program? Supported by the big parties, extracted out of the Darling Downs, methane, more toxic, 20 times more toxic than carbon in the atmosphere, pipelined to Gladstone, burnt elsewhere in the world. But each drill hole, besides compromising the water underneath for the farmers, takes up a hectare. And I was flabbergasted that the proposal for the next 20 to 30 years is not one drill hole in the Darling Downs, but 40,000 for people to make money at the expense of our food-producing Darling Downs, the upper end of the Murray-Darling Basin. Well, a few weeks ago, I was on that trip at the Oxygen Cafe in Toowoomba, and I met the last resident of Ackland, Mr Glenn Butel. Like a good many other bush folk I've met in my time, he's pretty quiet. But he also has that quintessential Australian stubbornness against letting the wrong thing happen. And despite the local coal companies and treaties, Glenn has refused to move. His is the last house in Ackland. He is also committed to saving the Anzac Memorial Park just down the road, because his late mother and father worked for years to get that park established. He doesn't want the coal miners to destroy the Memorial Park. Glenn gave me a recent photo of a koala getting through his back fence. He's got more photos of the deserted town's main street, one of them here, up the pole in Church Street. The churches have gone. The koalas are still there, but they're following because the open cut is compromising more of the koala habitat of the Darling Downs. Where are you? Glenn Hunt, Greg Hunt. Where are you, Peter Garrett?